Ladies and gentlemen, mech warriors and mech fans from around the world in the inner sphere, welcome to another Town Hall meeting. I am Darren, aka Bombadil, and I am joined tonight by Phil, aka Sean Lang, Russ Bullock, president of Piranha Games, and Chris Lowrey, game designer for MWO. Tonight's topics will include balance, the skill tree, the Civil War timeline advancement, and more. Keep in mind, chat will be moderated as usual, and a big thank you to Zoof, Wingbreaker, and JD Slice for their help with that tonight. So please behave yourselves, and let's have some fun and talk MechWarrior online. Phil, are you there? How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for asking me. I got a fresh cup of coffee. I just ate some peach pie, and I feel like a fat kid right now. That's my life right now.
Nice. Well, enjoy your pie and your coffee. I didn't get my coffee. I didn't get around to it. Not enough time. So I'm sticking to water tonight, but that'll be all right. It's hot here, so I need to cool down. And Chris, are you there?
Yep, I'm here. How's it going,
Cool.
guys?
Good, good. And how are you doing tonight?
Doing pretty good. Busy.
You ready to answer some questions?
Oh, yes.
I hope so, because there's lots of them. And of course, Russ Bullock. Russ, how are you doing tonight?
Very good. Glad to be here. Sorry, it's been too long since we had one of these. Far too long.
It's been many months. I don't remember exactly what month the last town hall was. We did have some roundtables, more recently, but yeah, it's been a long time since we've had just like a general town hall. So I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it, and I'm certainly ready to discuss these topics and see where we're going with MWO. Russ, do you have anything you want to say before we do get started?
Well, I guess I'd just like to set this up here tonight. I appreciate everyone coming out, and again, it's my fault. I think we haven't had one for a while. They just kind of got away from us there for a bit, and sure, we've been busy working on a lot of big features, and I think all of us collectively, both the developers and I think maybe even the players, sometimes we can't see the forest through the trees just because we've been at this for so long, and we've been, working on this game for so long. But there's lots of big things coming out, and either have come out in the last couple months or are scheduled to come out here in the next couple months, and there's plenty to talk about. There's lots of great things to talk about, and I think it was just kind of realizing that and saying, why aren't we having these? We've got loads to talk about. There's tons of stuff there. So I know that you guys have been getting to know Chris, who's been working on the balance side the last number of months. We've been working together and discussing a lot of things, as you might imagine, and I've enjoyed working with him. And I think tonight is going to be a little more, I wouldn't say general, but it's if you look at what we've released over the last number of months, you've got we did a round of balance changes, and then we had the skill tree system, and then we had some balance changes, and we know the Civil War tech is coming up. So I think there's a lot to discuss, especially around balance and the state of play in MWO, and just trying to use tonight's town hall to sort of dictate where the game is going to go next.
Absolutely. Now, obviously, with the skill tree in the last patch, or not the last patch, but after the most recent one, and then Civil War next month, some major additions, new things to the game. I think it's quite exciting. I've seen a lot of not new players, but people coming back, checking out MWO again, checking out the new features, and I am excited to dig into these things. And of course, we do have Chris here to answer the balance questions, of which we got a lot of, and so hopefully you guys are here and ready. And yeah, a big thank you to all you guys out in chat. Thank you for showing up. We appreciate you being here. It is a Friday night, so I hope you all are going to have a great Friday and great weekend. And at some point, hopefully towards the end of this town hall, we'll be taking questions from live chat. We'll let you know. Just depends on how long it takes to get through the rest of the questions, which we've gathered from the MWO official forums, as well as Reddit, and a few off of Twitter and so forth. So all of these questions tonight are from you guys, the players, the player base. So hopefully we get your questions answered to our best ability. And don't leave too many out tonight. But of course, like I always say, we can't get to everybody's questions, so we'll do our best. But anyway, should we just jump right in, Russ?
Yeah, let's do this.
Ready?
Let's get going.
All right, let's do this. This first one happens to be, and it was they preface this question for Chris Lowrey. So this is you, Chris. You're up.
Of course.
All right. So, and again, these are your questions. So I'm going to read them as best I can. Sometimes it's a little hard for me to read exactly what you wrote, but hopefully this is clear. Changing things incrementally is obviously a good thing. However, from where I sit, some of the changes make no sense. So what kind of telemetry do you get that would suggest that changing, for example, a large laser duration by, say, 0.1 seconds, either way would make any difference to the weapon's usefulness? For example, if you increase the duration of the large laser by 0.1, do you see a corresponding drop-off in the total damage numbers by that weapon type? That's a mouthful. Hopefully you understood, and hopefully we can address that.
Well, there's a lot to unpack with pretty much that question, and I think that in order to kind of properly answer this, we have to kind of rewind back. I think that he's mostly covering, changes from the recent energy rebalance stuff. So let's kind of just rewind the clock back a few months to pretty much when there was pretty much a large outcry from, you guys, the player base, in regards to the overall kind of state of clan versus IS balance. And this was fairly early when I got brought on, and for the most part, we then started looking at all the current systems that we had in the game, and where the clan and IS balance was essentially starting to strain. So one thing that kind of came about this was essentially the energy balance between the IS side versus the clan side. I know that typically within the fiction, the clans had some very potent laser weapons, but it was pretty much to the point where within the context of our game, that potency was really getting to the point where it was just completely outclassing the inner sphere across the board. So we pretty much essentially did an audit of the energy weapons that were in the game over the course of lots of months. Got essentially the telemetry data as well as monitoring overall performance of mechs that are pretty much known for heavy laser boat, kind of configurations. And we pretty much then, kind of got our bullet points, not just of, where we were finding kind of those stress marks within the context of clan and IS balance, but also those stress marks within just the context of laser balance in general. One thing that we kind of sought out to improve within the context of the system was not just, the overall power as far as the clan weapons, but also the overall usability of all of the weapons in general, because there were a few weapons such as the small pulse lasers and the standard medium lasers and the large pulse lasers that were essentially outclassing many of the other weapons in the lineup. So we pretty much kind of sought out to not just kind of bring the clan energy weapons a bit more into line with the inner sphere side, but also to kind of affect just the entire gradation of all the weapons between one to the other. So within the context of the large laser that this guy brought up in his question, the large laser was one of those things where overall there was just a few stats that shifted around, and that had more to do with us kind of examining where we wanted the entire laser line to be, and kind of where the large laser fit into that kind of a niche between the ER laser as well as those medium class lasers. So I know we shifted a few of the stats around, and it might seem fairly insignificant, but that wasn't done so much to affect that in particular class of laser directly, but to kind of fit it into more of its niche slot within the context of the greater weapon lineup as a whole.
Alrighty, good to go. And also in chat, while we totally appreciate your enthusiasm, please don't ask questions until we are pulling questions from chat, because obviously they're not going to get answered until that time. So save your questions for that point. And once we do get to that point, you will, hopefully somebody did it in there, type in all caps questions so that we can see it easily when we get to that point.
Just one quick interjection. I think sorry, I just Chris, you and I were talking about this the other day when Chris was recently in Vancouver. We brought him up on site for a week, and we had a lot of work to do around the Civil War update, and so we'll talk about that here, I'm sure, tonight. But one point I thought that was interesting that I think people will find pertinent is the fact that sometimes it feels like these balance changes are happening all the time, where things are being nerfed or changed. We were kind of surprised ourselves to find out that some of these weapon systems really hadn't been tuned in years and years. I mean, what was that example, Chris? Like, I think maybe it was a Clan Small Pulse Laser. One of these was hadn't had a value change on it since like 2014 or something. I'm trying to remember, but
November 2015 was the last time that almost all of the Clan lasers last got any kind of tuning.
Right, so there's been 2.5 years essentially since any of the Clan lasers have been changed. So I think when we remind ourselves of that, we realize that we are thoughtful about these things. We're not just jumping all over and doing them all the time. It's we thought long and hard. It's obviously a long time, happened between the last time we tweaked them and this time.
All right, and you did breach the subject that a lot of people were asking about Clan Small Pulse Lasers, and actually there's a question in here specifically referring to that one that I'm going to jump ahead to as soon as I can find it. Actually, I'll go to the next question, then I'll come, or did you find it there? Yes, there it is. The question is, I think I understand the idea behind the Clan Small Pulse Laser damage reduction, but didn't you forget to lower its heat accordingly? It needs to maintain good damage to heat ratio to be used in a knife fight. Lots of issues, well, there were lots of issues with the Clan Small Pulse Laser. Many people saying that it's now useless for light mechs. Chris, your thoughts on that?
Well, I know that weapon probably out of all the weapons currently got changed the most, and it's something that we are continuing to observe. When we basically make any kind of balance change, we don't just kind of make it, for the purpose of leaving it, but we make them with some kind of internal numbers that we have as far as use rates and where we ultimately want the weapon to end up as far as overall performance. So if it essentially, we basically set the values as best as we could with the data that we had, even though it was essentially a pretty big change. But if it's essentially not hitting those kind of internal numbers that we're shooting for, we're going to, potentially look into making some alterations to it to make sure it kind of nudges its way towards where we kind of want to be within the context of the general lineup for those weapons. So, the changes that we've made are definitely, they're not, I would say, the values that we're just going to completely leave where it is right now. If something through the data and through, gameplay and through, feedback that we hear from you guys is clearly not working as intended, we, we'll go back and re-examine it. And we have, anytime we introduce large changes like the laser weapons changes, we do have, essentially those numbers that we want to shoot for, and we are going to be keeping a close eye to make sure that those weapons are hitting those numbers.
All right, and Dominoth in chat notes that in terms of the Clan Small Pulse Laser, that it's hotter than the Medium Pulse Laser. I don't know the numbers, and I don't know the information, but anything to address on that?
Yeah, stuff like that, again, we'll keep an eye on it, and if we basically determine that it needs a little bit of a nudge, that's probably a big candidate for pretty much improving it in the future.
Right. All balance issues. All right. Next question is, are there any plans to change the fundamental mechanics for LRMs so that they can be an effective direct fire weapon without also being overpowered in an indirect fire role? Are LRMs... Oh, no. He's quite asking about MRMs. Yeah, next month. Simply going to be the de facto long-range missile system with LRMs remaining focused on indirect fire, but with multiple counters to prevent them from becoming overpowered.
Well, any kind of mechanical change, to LRMs is going to be kind of a big... It's going to be a big feature push to get any kind of major change to just the fundamental mechanics of LRMs like he's indicating here. But it's not that we're opposed to doing that. It's just that any kind of large change like that has to be slotted in with all the other changes that we're currently working on. I mean, within this coming month, we do have MRMs coming in, and we do have a lot of different weapon systems that are going to bring a lot of unique functionality that we currently don't have in the game right now, which obviously takes a lot of resources on our end to kind of make sure that we can make them, fun to use and compelling within the context of all the other weapon systems. I mean, it's one of those things I would love to get to eventually, but it just has to come, any kind of like big change to any kind of system, just has to come within the context of everything else that we're working on. So it's just a matter of when can we kind of slot the time to get that kind of stuff done.
All right, and these kinds of changes are not like overnight things, right? You've got to accumulate data over time, and these changes, you don't just the next day see all the relevant data, right?
Well, more so from data. Like, data can essentially point to us wanting to change it in the first place. But again, if we're going to be changing the mechanics for how LRMs work, that's also a big design challenge, as well as making sure that we get engineers behind it to actually make those changes to the engine and make sure it's functioning correctly. So kind of the more complex the changes are, the more of an ask it is to pretty much get within the context of all the other features that you push. If it was just something as simple as pretty much changing something like the ammo count or the velocity value, that's something that we can essentially get to. But again, those changes have to be made within the context of not just the players at the top, but also our entire player base, because it's just one of those things right now where LRMs are in that state where, if we do edit them, in some ways it does exacerbate some of the frustrations that a lot of our players in the Tier 4 and Tier 5 region kind of see in their games.
So what you're basically saying is you can't just change one little thing about them, like a variable. You're really having to change the actual mechanic, which involves lock-on, which involves the characteristics of the flight, all that, right?
Well, the question was, can we change the fundamental mechanics of LRMs? If it's just a matter of just changing a few values or whatnot, that's something that we can definitely consider. But to actually change the fundamental mechanics of them, that's a much bigger ask.
All right, we'll move on to the next question. This person says, although I fully support the changes that are launching with the new patch, I do feel that explaining the reasons or the reasoning would go a long way in helping the community understand why you are making these changes. My recommendation would be to do what you guys did for the updates on the hero mechs recently, where you changed some of their loadouts and you explained why you did it, as well as why you did not change some. Now, Chris, I know you actually did some good explaining for some previous changes. Is that something possibly we're going to see, in the future still?
Well, I mean, for this question, it's more about what is he actually talking about? Is it the patch notes, or is it some of the various other things that we do? Because we do try to be as robust as we can with the patch notes to kind of give context to the explanations that we are kind of framing the changes that we push under. And I try to make myself available, streaming with you guys the day after, and add events like this to kind of further explain rationale if it needs to happen. But as far as generalizations, I think I would have to have something a bit more specific to really comment on in this, because we do try to explain our reasoning to the best of our abilities, within the patch notes themselves and, in follow-up streams afterwards.
Well, we've introduced the concept of the design notes that we used quite often recently, as the question points out, and I think we can always get better at that. We need to continue to do that as much as possible. It's a lot of work, but with changes like this, it's extremely valuable to make sure everyone understands our mindset. So I'm not sure if we didn't do quite as much of that this time with these changes. Sometimes we, I guess maybe sometimes we misjudge things too on our side, where perhaps we feel the changes are very self-explanatory and we kind of miss an opportunity that we should have taken advantage of. And you probably should have had a better, more robust design notes, as I think we've called them, when we explain our reasoning, as we've done with a lot of things. So yeah, we're going to continue to try to do that as much as possible, and for anything that we know players are passionate about, certainly any kind of value change with weapons should have one of those.
Yeah, and just to throw out there to those watching, we try to basically cover as much as we can to the best of our ability within the patch notes and the design notes that we put forward in those things. But if we did miss something, or if something isn't that clear, I do try to stream with Phil, like pretty much on the patch days, to hopefully take questions like that and hopefully clear a bit of those kind of confusion points up.
Yeah, and I know you're also active on Reddit and the forums as far as answering questions when you can as well. So hopefully we'll keep doing that, and hopefully we'll keep improving with the communication as well. Next question is, will the clan ER large lasers and clan large pulse lasers get their ghost heat threshold raised to 3 like their IS inner sphere equivalents currently have it? As far as I can tell, they are the only weapons that don't have the same limits between IS and clan weapons.
Hey Chris, let me take this one.
All yours, sir.
Yeah, I think I can take this one. I mean, I want you, Chris, to jump in and tell me where you disagree, because we have these conversations internally, and Chris is very good at making sure his opinion is heard if he disagrees with me. I think that's, for the time being, unlikely, because, well, at the moment, I believe, even with the latest energy changes, the clan mechs are certainly not finding themselves now at a disadvantage and constantly getting run over and stomped by IS mechs. In fact, I think we've helped close the gap some with those changes, but I don't think we're even all the way there yet. So the clan mechs are certainly not on the losing end of energy weapon wars and trade-offs with their inner sphere counterparts. So I don't think that doing that would just exacerbate the problem and undo all the changes we've done, or all the closing of the gaps that we've done recently would just be wide open if we did that. Say yes or no, Chris.
Yeah, I agree with that. And just to kind of further elaborate on it, we're very much aware of pretty much those combos that the clans have, that the IS are not as potent with. The 2 large pulse laser, as many ER mediums as your mech can comfortably carry combo is definitely something that has a lot of power behind it. And I don't feel like, exacerbating the problem by basically opening up another ER or another large pulse laser to, get you even higher alpha values is kind of the right way to go as far as that. We'll obviously, monitor things as things, close out. And if it ever gets to a point where inner sphere is just, hand over fist better at the laser weaponry than the clans are, that's a point that we can always reconsider at a later time. But for right now, it's very much we're not seeing the clans lose out in the laser war anytime soon, so it'll probably stay as it is for now.
Alrighty, the next question is, have recent balance changes been made with future tech in mind? In other words, the upcoming Civil War advancement. If so, does PGI plan to address other mechs that are, for instance, low on hardpoint mounts? Spider 5V is a good example, or have other problems currently?
Well, no to the first point. We are making these balance changes within the context of the tech that is available within the game right now. And the reality of it is that there was essentially an imbalance, and we're trying to directly address that. Now, things like the overall weapon rolls is definitely something that we wanted to pretty much try to take a crack at before we actually got to the new tech in, because on their own, each of these weapon systems should pretty much be balanced within the context of the game as it is right now. But we also want to make sure that we get as close as we can to balancing with what we got right now, because balancing when we bring the new tech in is only going to get more complicated. So this is really just more of an effort to essentially balance what is currently in the game right now. And when the new tech comes in, we're going to have to balance within the context of everything that's in game, including the new tech.
Okay, now it's my turn.
Okay.
Take it.
No, I'm starting to get, you can tell I'm starting to get jealous, right? Like, I'm used to talking way more than this, and now Chris is here just doing all the talking. I saw that point there about the Spider 5V, and I find that that's something close to my heart. I want to. Chris, I actually, and we can even just do this live. What the heck? Get your thoughts on that. But I think for the longest time, some of those original variants, like the Spider 5V is a good example. There's others in that era that, Yen Lo Wang, for example, there's mechs out there that have significantly less hard points. And sure, there was a concern about potentially, like power creep or whatever. But when, the vast majority of the mechs now in the game, especially anything released in the last couple of years, has a particular hard point threshold that some of the original mechs just don't match anymore. So I don't really necessarily see the danger at this point in going back to some of those mechs and just making them match a similar hard point threshold where it makes sense across some of those chassis. And it really shouldn't impact the power creep of the game, because it's just kind of bringing them up where other chassis are. So, and the biggest problem, if Chris and the balance team agrees with me on that, then it's just finding time to go back and make it a priority and focus on some of those older chassis. But it would be nice. It's not that much work. As long as we just make it a priority, we could probably handle doing a couple each patch where you see like some of those older chassis get some tweaks like that. Thoughts, Chris?
Oh man, I feel like I'm going to have to be the Debbie Downer for this one because so from the balance perspective, one of the biggest challenges that we have within the context of the mechs that get released is are those mechs that essentially come with very similar hardpoint layouts. So where the Spider essentially, has very minimal hardpoints, but then the Javelin, which is within the same tonnage bracket, same tech faction, has essentially a version that comes with 7 hardpoints. Well, if we basically artificially increase the Spider 5V to essentially match that Javelin that has, more of the hardpoints, well, then we essentially get into a situation where pretty much we have essentially 2 identical mechs, and it essentially then becomes either a skin swap or essentially a hardpoint race as far as which ones have the better hardpoints and which ones kind of have the better ability to, strip those arms and get free shields and stuff like that. And so within the context of overall balance, while, kind of bring things to a bit better parity is, obviously it's an easy way to go, but for the overall, kind of mech selection within the context of the game, it's something that, on my side, it just kind of aggravates the issue of having mechs essentially have the exact same profile, and it's essentially a skin swap of which mech is better.
Let me interject there. So we'll just kind of have a little live debate here. That's good. I mean, you see why Chris is involved here. He understands these things well. But I guess to put a little more context in that, I certainly wouldn't want to add hard points anywhere that didn't exist already, just to make sure it's clear. Like, for example, if this, which is the Spider with the like 4 machine guns and like the K, 5K?
The D.
The D, is it the D? So it's like kind of like
the K.
Is it the K? Yeah, like 4 machine guns and like maybe a medium pulse or a large or something like that. So what would happen in that case? And maybe that one has enough, or if for some reason we just wanted to add another hard point, you could. You'd only add hard points of the same type in the same areas type of thing. So you would just kind of inflate it. So it would still essentially be the same general feel, like where the hard points are. You just might inflate it a little bit. So like there's 2 energy in this one spot, you might give it an extra 3, or maybe there's a couple machine guns over here, you might give it an extra 1, but you certainly wouldn't start changing geometry and modeling new geometry and adding hard points where they don't exist. That's a lot more work, and that opens up that just changes the variance completely. It would just be inflating where the hard points exist. But at any rate, I think it's something you could explore. If we were to kind of audit those older mechs, there's probably some opportunities across some of these variants to do some of that. I think, possibly.
Yeah, but
you can still disagree with me. That's fine.
Well, I mean, using the K is an example, the K is currently the top performing spider, so it's. I'm not saying
It was just
outside
my
the realm.
example, Chris.
I know,
Pick
I know.
another one.
So
Okay.
I do have something for you, Chris, and Russ as well. I think this brings up a bigger question, and that's necessarily to the performance of one mech compared to the other. What you're basically talking about is one is straight up better for firepower and combat, whereas the other one is not. What else would that 5K get then, Chris? If you're saying you don't want to artificially buff it, how could you then sell it to a player saying, well, you want to take it in this context?
Well, I mean, I don't know if I have a definitive answer for you right now, Phil, on that one, because the thing is that we do want to try to diversify gameplay, especially for those light mechs that kind of get into these Me Too configurations where, you know, they're pretty much mirrored across multiple different chassis types. So, you know, kind of getting those unique aspects of gameplay is, you know, something that we definitely want to try to implement to them. But the problem is that we also want it to be impactful on the game that, you know, it currently plays out. Because, you know, if I basically was to give something like, you know, if I was to give like the 5K something like a cap accelerator or, you know, extra sensor range or something like that, well, no one's really going to care all too much about that in the current context of the game, because that doesn't contribute to what most people, you know, utilize this mechs for, which is pretty much the mech combat. So as much as I would like to diversify that stuff, you know, I think that other aspects of the gameplay have to kind of be fleshed out a bit more first before we can start exploring kind of those non-combat roles or those non-combat attributes to pretty much enhance these mechs with.
All right.
Cool.
I think
that was the best one yet.
Yeah, indeed. No more debating?
No, that's fine. I thought that was the most interesting part of the whole conversation. The whole
No,
town
I
hall
agree.
so far.
Hey, I'm not trying to take that away. I want more
Cool.
debate. I actually like that. Let's move on to the next question, though. This is a little bit of a one of those loaded questions. But anyway, his question is in regards to quirk changes. He says, stop bait switching, please. Iterative smaller nerfs. In other words, the Grasshopper 5P and what is that? The
Battlemaster
2C. Thank you. Please. So those are his examples of iterative smaller nerfs. So,
well, I don't know how.
Chris, are you going to stop bait switching?
I mean, I don't know how small you want me to go. I mean, the Battlemaster 2C, I think we only reduced its structure quirks by about, you know, 20-30%, which, you know, within the context of what it's capable of doing, both through its baseline structure and armor properties, plus what you can get out of the skill tree, that really isn't all that much, and we've hit other mechs more extreme than that. And as far as you know, the Grasshopper 5P, I know that there's another 5P question right after this, but you know, guys, at the end of the day, the mechs have to be balanced against the greater lineup of all the mechs available to you, not just you know, within the context of the overall 75 or 70-ton line in the case of the Grasshopper, but also within the chassis line as well. And the 5P just, you know, I think that I don't think it's a stretch for me to pretty much say that many people consider that the strongest Grasshopper chassis out there, and in a sense, it was not balanced with the rest of the Grasshopper lineup available, and we're trying to essentially not just balance all of the mechs, you know, across the different chassis, but also within the variants of the individual chassis themselves. And you know, we come at it from both directions. So we don't just kind of remove what is there, but we also bring up, you know, the low performers as well. Like the Grasshoppers, I know that most of where the 5P got nerfed, the 5J, I think, you know, pretty much got its armor pretty much increased compared to what it was before.
All right, and yeah, you're correct. The next question also brings up the Grasshopper 5P. The question is, why did the Grasshopper 5P get its tankiness removed while simultaneously adding a pay-to-play hero mech that is even tankier, which is, of course, the Mjolnir. I don't know how to pronounce it, but anyway.
Well, to speak to, I mean, the hero tankiness, We didn't remove the Grasshopper 5P tankiness only to give it to the hero mech. We actually increased the 5J to pretty much have identical structure quirks, or sorry, armor quirks to the Mjolnir hero. So there is essentially a C-Bill version that is just as tanky as the hero mech if it's available. But in the case of the 5P, the 5P has those 4 high-mounted torso energy hardpoints and a lot of the range quirks and a lot of natural things with the geometry going for it compared to the rest of the Grasshopper line. So it's also the top performing Grasshopper that is performing outside of where we want the overall balance curve to pretty much be. So we don't necessarily want to bait and switch people and basically say buy the heroes, but we do want to make sure that we have better parity within the context of the overall line. So if you do want that tankiness in the Grasshopper, the 5J has basically the exact same armor quirks as the Mjolnir, and even with the Mjolnir, like, we keep these heroes under very tight observation upon release, and if the Mjolnir is seen to be pretty much performing a bit too well, it might see a reduction at a later point in time.
Don't you touch my damn mech.
Yeah, I know Phil
he's been
loves
enjoying
it. Oh yes, but like that's kind of the thing though, is that we try to make changes that better balance not just the chassis line, but also the inner variant dynamics. So whereas the 5P is naturally good at offensive capabilities with those high-mounted quirks, we felt that it also getting substantial tanky-ness through the structure quirks was a little just bit too much for it when it was overperforming, and so we basically took those and put armor quirks on some of the lower performing ones, and hopefully bring better balance between the different variants that are there. And as far as the new ones, that heroes that are introduced, we do try to make sure that it's somewhat similar to the other mechs in the line. Like the Mjolnir doesn't have as many high-mounted hardpoints as the 5P, for example. But we're not against essentially changing it if it's proving to be too much outside of the spectrum for where all of the Grasshoppers themselves are performing.
Alrighty, and Beef says it's meow meow. That's a lot easier for me to pronounce, so I may stick with that. Anyway, moving on to the next one. This is also a chassis-specific question.
Do you think we should continue with all the chassis-specific questions?
I don't know. That's up to you.
I mean, what do you guys think? We can move through these. I guess just, Chris, let's just maybe be a little quicker so we can... we have lots of reasoning why we do these things, but, we could talk about every chassis for an hour, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And chat would bring them up, too. I mean, obviously...
So let's do these 2 more chassis-specific questions here. Why don't we just do those ones real quick, and then we can get into those other ones that are a little more general.
All right, then the next one is Black Knight. It says, why did the Black Knight keep 15% range when every other mech lost range when the skill tree was launched? Then a month later, lower it to, say, 10%, like a lot of other mechs are keeping, but instead fully remove its 15%. I'm sure a lot of people like me bought one just for that 15% range.
The Black Knight's a tough one because that was one of those mechs that we receive a lot of criticism that it's just too similar to each other between all the different chassis, between the hardpoints that are almost identical to, pretty much all of the other things going for it. We really wanted to pretty much give a bit more diversity to the overall Black Knight line itself. And yeah, the 15% range quirk was definitely high, and we pretty much, needed to adjust that mech within the context of what we wanted to do with it. And for that one in particular, we got rid of a lot of its offensive quirks to kind of promote a more tanky option for you, where before it was kind of just a universal structure across the board when for the most part the Black Knights were fairly similar as far as what you got. So now we've essentially diversified the line to make sure that there's essentially the mobile one with higher agility, the more tanky ones with armor instead of structure, and those ones with more offensively orientated quirks.
Question for you, Chris, in regards to quirks. Can you just quickly elaborate? I mean, it's an ongoing process. I know some people get really pissed off when stuff like this happens. right? And we can sit here and we can go over every single detail, every single little nitpick here or there, but this is something what happens, and I just saw someone say they bought the mech just because of that. I feel like that's sort of a no-brainer. You should expect the changes to be happening.
I'd actually like to comment on that, if that's okay.
Take it, Russ.
Yeah, I mean, I think, honestly, we've been really consistent with this since the very beginning. I mean, since the very first time we ever, sold a mech pack, probably from the Phoenix mech pack, there was probably disclaimers that say, balance could change. Don't buy mechs based on, the particular balance numbers in the game. I mean, what you're buying is, here's the mech, it looks like this. Here's the patterns and skins. Here's the hard points it has and the location of those hard points. And that's what you buy, you set your buying decision on, and not anything to do with the quirks. And trust me, I know people, sometimes I think they give us too much credit in the sense that we, do things for reasons, and sometimes it just, maybe it just looks that way on the outside. But Chris and design team is just trying to balance the game, and they're not necessarily talking to Matt and saying, oh hey, like, what do you have for sales this month or marketing. Trust me, Chris and Matt don't talk. I mean, they don't talk at all. And I certainly don't sit there and create a master plan. Sometimes it just, heck, maybe I should, maybe I could improve sales or something, but no, we just don't. They're separate items. And we just continue to lean on the fact that here's the reasons why you'd buy a mech. Don't ever buy it based on balance or quirks. And having said that, trust me, there's plenty of times, like a lot of times, where someone says we should nerf this or change this or reduce this, and I've said, okay, hold up. It's like, that might be a little much. These guys just got this mech or whatever. Like, I try to ease those things in as much as I can, slow them in. But if the change needs to happen for balance reasons, as much as I might like to say, no, let's not do that for marketing type reasons, I won't ever let that stop the change from happening. Sometimes I'll make it slow the change slightly or ease the change in slightly. That's the best I can do, but otherwise I know I need to do what's best for the game and for the balance, and so I say, okay, go ahead. But yeah, I just don't buy mechs based on quirks, based on the current balance, the current meta. Those things change, and there's no master plan behind it.
Well, there's also one thing that I do want to say in regards to this, and that is that I try not to shift things too much. I know it's hard to believe sometimes, but I do try to respect the quirks that are kind of there to begin with. I know that when it came to the Black Knight, I think the BL6 Knight, the reason that we gave it mobility quirks was because it was already the most mobile chassis, within the context of the quirks that already existed on the mechs before we started doing this kind of reassignment. So when it came to us pretty much, doing this, we did try to keep, things like the BL6 essentially the most agile one, because agility was pretty much one of its feature quirks from, before. But those mechs, you just can't kind of guarantee that for everything. And we did want to make shifts, so that there would be kind of more of more variety within the context of the variants that are available. So it's just one of those cases where if we wanted to create a tanky one, something kind of had to give, and we couldn't give the tanky one essentially, much higher offensive quirks in addition to that tankiness, because then that just creates additional concerns. So, within the context of the one that lost the range quirks, I mean, it's not like I'm trying to do this intentionally, and we are trying to preserve quirks as best as we can when we do make major changes like this. But sometimes, when it comes to the overall goals that we're trying to get within balancing with these chassis, quirks are never a guarantee. So
perfect. And let's hit this last chassis specific question, which is, why did you remove the Quick Draw IV4's armor quirks? The only way it's playable is to play to the cooldown quirks, right? That means it has to be able to face tank even for just a bit, yet even with the armor quirks, it still loses its arms and its main guns quickly.
This is an easy one, because this was a bug. And
that does make it easy.
So these past few months have kind of pushed a lot of changes in, and we kind of apologize, on my behalf, as far as the Quirks go, that sometimes these bugs do make it in, but we are listening to the feedback that you guys get, and when there are bugs like the IV4 Quirks that are unintentional, we do try to essentially get those fixed up within a hotfix. So if we ever do push one, and I know that with the IV4 Quirks, it should have its armor quirks back, and it was pushed with the latest hotfix.
Excellent.
Sweet.
Good answer. Okay, this one again addressed to you, Chris. Chris, you recently posted that IS clan balance is closer than it has ever been before. I believe you stated that the numbers show an 8% difference. Would give us some idea about how you internalize your data to come up with such a comparison.
I'm going to have to be very general with this because for the most part we try to keep the metrics internal, but it shouldn't come at any surprise that we essentially pull a lot of data from the servers as far as overall mech performance, and I can essentially see pretty much how good mechs are performing across multiple different balance points. If it's essentially a number that you guys can see in the front end, it's something that I can kind of pull on a server-wide and kind of dissect it based on different parameters that we can't get into. And, we essentially examine this data across all the games, CW, private matches, and everything like that. And there's multiple things that we look for as far as, when a mech can basically skew outside of the parameters that we kind of want to keep within the context of the game. And I can't really get into the specifics of what those settings are, but essentially if you guys can see it in your clients or look it up in your stats page on your profile, we essentially can see that on the developer side across the entire game, and we essentially make sure to farm that data, examine it, and use it as a tool within the context of the changes that we put forward. We don't necessarily lean on it as an absolute. I'm pretty much playing the game nightly to basically see what players are doing, in addition to viewing a bunch of things like comp matches and other factors that are outside of the data points. But we do have that data, and we do utilize it, to the best of our abilities to make sure that, we can pretty much bring the dial closer together for the game.
Fair enough. Next question is in regards to the player test servers. Would you care to explain why you don't have a PTS with the lasers, but simply roll it out untested? I'm assuming he's referring, I don't know, Clan Small Pulse again or something.
Yeah, probably.
Why don't you just PTS all the time? I just don't get why you are so afraid, Chris, of free testing and data. I threw your name.
I can actually take this one if you want.
All right,
I mean,
Russ.
You can add to it if you want. But, well, there's a couple things here. I mean, one, PTS it takes some effort, and we have to put those things together. And primarily the PTS we use definitely for larger items, especially if the larger items are going to be QA heavy and we're worried about quality assurance and bugs slipping through and just having a lot to test. So the larger systems, skill tree, upcoming Civil War, and sometimes that the PTS server is also already busy, say, running a non-public PTS with maybe private testers outside of our internal office. And so that's a good example of what's been going on recently. The new Civil War tech has been on the PTS server for a little while now, and we've been testing that not only with our internal staff, but also some external testers and running over the Civil War tech. And so the PTS server has been busy for a while doing that. It wasn't really available in this case for these lasers. And I guess that's a good point to say that the Civil War tech will be going public on PTS sometime very soon. In fact, I think, do you have a date memorized, Chris?
Soon. I think you would know better than I would.
Soon. I think we're talking
Soon.
like
Soon, trademark.
within the next week, I believe. So throw that out there. I could be wrong, but it's sometime soon. So it's going to happen. You guys are going to get to test it firsthand.
Well, I'm going to say that real quick, Chris, that's a big deal. You know, Civil War tech's coming to player test. So it would be great for as many of you as possible to get ready for that and download the PTS and be ready to give us that feedback to test out these new systems. And I can say they're a lot of fun, and it's going to be an amazing addition to the game. But Chris, I interrupted. Go.
No, you interrupted me.
Oh, did I? I
Right
couldn't
over
tell
top
who
of
that
me.
was.
My
I'm
turn.
sorry, Russ.
No, I was basically done. I just wanted to say also, just to finish that off, but also, you know, with these lasers, I mean, sometimes even if PTS is available, we still would choose not to do so. I'm not trying to hide behind the fact that PTS was busy. It is true in this case that it was, but with laser changes like this, I mean, they're not something that's going to be QA heavy or bug heavy. They're just values. Sometimes mistakes slip through. I think this time we did have one with the ER large laser, as a matter of fact. So I'm not saying that it wouldn't still be beneficial, but a lot of times those PTSs also can just serve for a moment for the community to say, this is ridiculous. Don't let this go live. And sometimes that's not useful, you know, for us to have that type of feedback that we know is essentially certain. But again, like Darren said, let's focus on the good stuff, and that is that Civil War tech is, I mean, that's a big deal. This is one of those like forest through the trees moments that's kind of getting lost. I mean, this is new weapon systems. The first time we've had new weapon systems and moved the timeline forward since the clan invasion, which was when? The summer of 20...
It was a while back.
Long time. It's been a long time. It's been at least 2.5 years, maybe more. It's all a blur to me now.
Yep.
There's a lot of weapon systems getting introduced. So it's been in production for months and months and months already. And some of this stuff is amazing. I mean, it took a significant amount of work, just a few little specific teasers. It took a dedicated engineer weeks and weeks and weeks to do stealth armor. So boy, that was a big one. You know, deciding to do that was a lot of work, but that's an example of something that's just totally different. It's just going to change the game in so many ways.
I totally agree. It's going to be so much fun. I just spent hours in there just putting all the weapons on my mechs and seeing how they played, seeing how they sound. By the way, if you don't have the MWO portal, there's a link. You can go download it and be ready when it does come out on PTS. Is there anything else we want to address in terms of that question and or balance, Chris or Russ, before we move on to the next topic? And just so you guys know out there, that doesn't mean we're done talking about balance. We may come back to it or whatever, but is there anything else specifically in mind, you two?
Well, just to kind of comment on the laser changes themselves, PTS would have been nice, if it was available, but in this case it wasn't. But it's also one of those cases where we had an extensive amount of data because, essentially the lasers themselves weren't, changed for quite a bit. So, even if we had PTS available to us, I'm not entirely confident that it would have changed things dramatically from what they were upon release, because most of what we've pretty much done was based on data that we've collected over an extended period of time because of how long it was since the last time the lasers have changed. But with that said, I know that a few questions and a few comments in chat, have kind of alluded to just the extent of the change and how heavy-handed it was. Typically, I don't try to hit things too hard to where it's such a severe shift, but this is just one of those cases where we had a lot of numbers to pretty much back it up, and also had an overall goal of what we wanted to do with things. Now that we've pretty much kind of gotten that out of the way, if we do do any further changes to the laser lineup, you can probably count on them being a lot more incremental than they were upon this initial feature release.
All right, that sounds good. Now, guys, like I mentioned, that is as far as the questions that we had already ready to go in terms of balance. We're going to move on to the next topic. But like I said, we're going to have some questions from the chat towards the end of the show, probably, hopefully, so you can get more in there. And then if we talk about these other subjects and there's balance issues involved in that, of course, we'll continue to discuss that. But we're going to take a short bio break. Real quick here. We'll come back. We'll talk skill tree. We'll talk Civil War, the new comp mode, faction warfare, maybe some MechCon, MWOWC. We'll see. Lots of stuff to talk about still. So, yeah, let your friends know we're here. Tweet it out again, guys, and we will be right back. Also, as far as questions in chat, again, I just want to remind you that although you can ask questions right now, the majority of them, if not all, are not going to get answered until the time comes when we are taking questions from live chat. So just keep that in mind. We're not ignoring you. It's just not that time. We're taking questions right now from the forums and Reddit and so forth. So we will be back.
And of course, guys, if you guys are new, make sure to click that follow button and give us a follow. And yeah, we'll be right back.
All right, we are back. Welcome back to the Town Hall meeting with Russ Bullock, President of PGI, and Chris Lowrey, MWO Game Designer. I am Darren, a.k.a. Bombadil, and I'm joined tonight by Phil, a.k.a. Sean Lang. And also, I've got our moderators here. Again, thank you to JD Splice, Wingbreaker, and Zoof. Chat is moderated, so please, people, behave and stop the personal attacks. Not towards us. You guys are attacking each other. Come on. We all love Battletech and MechWarrior. I know we're all passionate, but let's show some love. That's why we're all here, right? That's why we're all here, because we love our mechs and we love our Battletech MechWarrior. So We did just finish talking some balance. We may get back to some more balance questions, but we're going to jump into skill tree and then Civil War, new comp mode, faction warfare, and more things that we have to discuss tonight. And then towards the end, hopefully, maybe we'll have some time for questions directly from you guys from chat, in which case I'll give you the rules on how we're doing that to make it easy and efficient. But anyway, let's just jump right in. So the first skill tree question is, are there any plans to simplify, make linear, or simply streamline the skill tree based on player feedback? Russ or Chris, one of you want to take that?
Well, I'll jump on it real quick. Yeah, it's I mean, it's hard to say just flat out no to anything. I mean, some part of this question is talking about making linear, which is clearly in reference to more linear trees rather than the system that we have now. And our thinking hasn't changed on that. We still believe that in order to achieve the best balance the game has ever had, and I say to achieve that, we're not there yet, but I think we now have the systems in place, you know, between all the underlying systems that we've done over the last 3 or 4 months, all the ability we've added to change baseline values and to engine desync and the trees, the way the trees are currently, you know, we think that we're on our way to creating far better balance than we've had and that we could achieve if we had linear trees. So we still believe that way. So we're always, you know, open to feedback. We're always listening. Sometimes it feels like we aren't. I promise we are. But we still feel the same. We still feel strongly about the way having the trees the way they are. I mean, I think that's the simple way to put it.
Cool. In return, in regards to the skill tree, any plans to improve the UI, copy, paste, loadouts, or templates, or just click and draw, etc.? 91 clicks times my 162 mechs is too many.
I agree. And we wanted to get some of that in for the initial release. As you know, we talked about it. I wish we could have got some of those in for sure. But now that we are where we are, I think we still will. But I just have to be careful with our UI, you know, bandwidth and where we're putting it. And I still think that we need some good changes there. But also, I think maybe we should try to focus in on, you know, what's the best path for the skill tree UI. Kind of post that initial heartache. I mean, a lot of people had a lot of clicks to get through all their mechs. But once they get through those clicks and they have their mechs loaded out, or, you know, what would a new player experience, what's going to be the important thing? So there is still respecking. So there probably is still some valid need for some quicker way, whether that's drawing paths or whether that's templates or so. Simplifying to a shorter answer, yes, there's I think we need to go back there and make those improvements.
Excellent. All right. Next question is, will there be more balance tweaks to the skill nodes so that certain weapons, equipment, and mechs and their chassis weight classes or chassis and weight classes get needed boosts to relevant nodes? Sorry, sometimes hard when it's not your own writing. Like, for example, bump up UAC GM chance reduction to, say, -10% each. Make it so slower lights, like the Raven, Firestarter, Kit Fox, Puma, Cougar, etc., get more % increase for speed tweak without hitting the border of slowest medium speed limits.
Well, I think there's a couple parts of this answer. I'll let Chris help me out here with this, but the first part is, are we going to be making tweaks to values of the nodes? I mean, I think there's no question that we will. Like, a time will come where, for balance reasons, we're going to say, okay, we just have to change this value. And we will. But we're going to be really careful about that. And the reason is, as soon as we change some of those nodes or change them too much or change them too drastically, then it's going to create a situation where we need to possibly have to refund those nodes for players because they may not want what it is now. And that's just kind of a very complex, messy situation. So we're going to try not to do that. We're going to try, or a better way to put it is, we'll try to do that as infrequently as possible. But when it's necessary, we will. But the other part of this question is, it sounds like they're looking at sort of like chassis specific thing, like he lists off Raven, Firestar, Kit Fox, Puma, Cougar, and maybe tweak the nodes for those particular mechs versus other ones. Correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, but I don't think we can do that, right? Because that is essentially saying you have a separate tree for every single chassis or variant in the game versus the way it is now.
Yeah, it's not a path that we're looking at going down at this point in time. If a mech pretty much needs a boost to any attribute, we'll try to hit it at the base value at this point.
Right, that's the way we would approach that, because otherwise we'd literally have to have like something like 700 plus skill trees in the game, which is just unmanageable.
Well, not just that, but it's also a slippery slope as far as you know, what gets what boost to what attributes. I mean, it can be. He's bringing up the argument on the mobility side, but it could be probably equally argued that those mechs with low amounts of hard points would get some kind of boost on the firepower side or other kind of attributes. And then there's just that point where if you go down that path, it could just be a clustered, you know, tree that kind of has no common attribute from one chassis to the next, because it pretty much, you know, factors in all these things for each individual chassis, which not only makes it more complicated from a balance perspective when it's not unified, but it also makes it a lot more unclear for the players to actually know what they're getting out of the firepower tree on one mech as opposed to the other.
Well, I mean, I guess I just want to also throw in that, and now that we, you know, those are the questions we had in the skill tree part. I mean, I know a lot of people had anxiety on the skill tree. I think it's worked out pretty well in the end, and you know, we've got plenty of work to do on the balance side for sure, and we're going to continue to work on the UI. But you know, we are seeing the advantages from a chassis perspective, and I think that kind of goes back to some of those stats you were talking about, Chris. I mean, we are seeing. Well, I guess maybe a better way to put that is we are seeing a lot more. Maybe a variety in the skill tree, like useful paths to take than maybe people expected or thought. I mean, we were hopeful, and I think that we've been generally pleased with the notion that, you know, people can choose to go defensive or choose to go mobility or kind of choose different paths. And we are seeing mechs with multiple paths of success or competitiveness. And so I guess I'll just throw that out there. I know it might be hard for people to maybe, you know, throw us some kudos there or something, but we're feeling relatively good about that whole thing, and I hope people are seeing that now and enjoying it.
To kind of expand on that before we move to a different topic, we're not just seeing kind of diversity within the selection of the nodes within the tree, but we're also seeing much more diversity in not only what people are taking to the field as far as what mechs are getting used, but also how far the spread between those low-performing mechs and those high-performing mechs are, as well as what kind of mechs are actually doing very well within the context of this system. I think that, you know, before the skill tree system, you know, urban mechs, cataphracts, Zeus's, there's a lot of mechs that pretty much performed under the bar. And in the case of things like Vindicators, they had essentially every quirk under the sun already and just were not performing all too well. But now that the skill tree is out and we've had some distance between it, we do see a much more colorful variety of mechs that are on the field. But at the same time, we're also seeing much more variety in what mechs are actually on the field and being effective, like within the context of the match itself. And this goes not just for the public queue, but also for everything from CW all the way up to even the comp play.
You see, and that's good news, Chris. It's good news.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Russ. All right, the next question we move into, and again, we can come back to skill tree, guys. Like I said, live questions at the end, or if anything else refers to it. But we're going to move into some Civil War questions. And the first one on here, was asked many times. People love their specific mechs. You can just watch chat for a little bit, and you can see that people keep asking for their fleas and fire moths and Mackies and so forth. This question is, any plans to introduce IS omnimechs?
I think I'd answer this question kind of like when people asked us if we'd ever move the timeline up and add new weapons. For a long time, for years and years, the answer was no. We're not there yet. I don't know that this is a years and years type thing again. Probably not. but it's not now because we just moved the timeline up. I think there is some examples of omnimechs, of IS omnimechs within that timeline now. A lot of you guys up there, are fresher on this stuff than I am, and I go through this every few months when we're kind of selecting mechs and stuff. And for the time being, we've avoided it. A lot of times that's for various reasons. Some of it is just for balance reasons, just trying to keep a lid on what we're working on and what we're trying to get working and how we're balancing the game, and adding other aspects like that will change the the Mech Lab UI. Like, okay, now you're in the IS side, but you got omnimechs and non-omnimechs, and we do that in the clan side, so it probably wouldn't be too difficult. But long answer to say, it's going to happen. I mean, I'm sure it'll happen. It's just I don't see that happening. Well, probably not this year, not for the rest of 2017. I think that's kind of pretty well mapped out at this point, and we're just introducing, Civil War this summer, and you've got your Civil War and your Civil War escalation, mech packs, and so I don't think there's time, or it's unlikely that it'll be this year. So that right now it's not planned. I just don't know, but it'll happen. I think at some point.
Sky's the limit for the future, but right now, not going to happen. Don't hold your breath. Next question is: can we expect further changes to? Wait, hold on. Is this in the wrong place? No. Okay. Sorry. This is appropriate. Can we expect further changes to faction play? In other words, what will the Civil War map of the Inner Sphere look like? Will there be Clan Wolf in Exile? Will Clan Smoke Jaguar be removed? And will we get an event for those things?
Cool. Okay. I'm not sure how much of this has been announced yet via roadmaps or something like that, to be honest. So some of this might be big surprises to you guys and like, oh wow, super announcement, or maybe not. The map will change with the Civil War update. We are going to change to a new default state, essentially, what the map looked like in canon when they got to Tukid. So that'll be the new starting position. We are going to be sort of playing out that, I guess, in a sense, as close as we can get. We're still trying to run a game here, and we can't just be the canon or the lore, because you've got a lot of players that play these factions, and we can't just we can't go exactly like canon and lore. But we're going to be doing our best to kind of playing out the Operation Bulldog. So you're gonna have a new starting map state. The win conditions are changing, and in fact, this time there actually will be much better defined win conditions. Last time it was kind of obvious. You get the 2-kid or whatever, and we have a battle 2-kid, but it was kind of arbitrary when and how that would happen. This time it's going to be better defined as to what the Inner Sphere's win conditions are and what the clan win conditions are. And we will be adding a whole bunch of clan factions. But keep in mind, before you get too excited, remember all those changes we went through when it came to reducing the buckets to where they are. That can't change. That's in a functioning state now where matches are kicking off. So essentially the battle front has to stay and function the way it is, but we're adding the new factions. So how would that work? The new clan factions will they'll have essentially every thing that the other clans can do, except they just won't have their own planets. So essentially, if we add NovaCat and there's a list of the ones we're adding. I'm not prepared tonight to tell you exactly what that list is, but there's going to be a bunch of them added, and essentially each one will be, I guess, associated with one of the existing clan factions, so that you can still go in there and you can still vote, and you can still, when you fight, you'll see your own clan banner and all that kind of stuff, and you'll have your own identity and the whole bit, but you just won't have ownership of planets, because quite obviously we just couldn't add 10 more sets of colored areas that are your planets versus Smoke Jaguars or whatever. Just way too much, way too complex. It'll still look similar with the 4 main clans carving down in. That'll be a new start state. All these new clan factions added though. Brand new win conditions. Very loosely, Inner Sphere is going to be pushing up towards the clan homeworld. It is not, I don't believe, limited to just the Smoke Jaguar side, but that's very loosely just showing you, and then the clans will have their own set of win conditions. So it'll be well defined. We're adding all those other clans, new starting point for the map, and it's going to be great. So that's all going to happen with the July patch of Civil War tech.
Yeah, that's exciting. I love this era. I'm typically more of a into the earlier eras of BattleTech and MechWarrior, but I'm very excited about this. You said Operation Bulldog. That's excellent. I actually shifted my reading habits to some more of the Civil War era books. Currently, I'm reading Illusions of Victory by Coleman, and just it's fun reading these novels and knowing that some of this stuff is coming to MWO, and I can't wait. The next question on Civil War is: are there any plans for IS versus IS in clan versus clan events?
Okay. Yes. We've been talking about it for a little while. In fact, just a second, Darren. I'm just scrolling down here. Do we have like an actual... Yeah, there is a faction warfare section. So I'm kind of combining the faction warfare section of questions here, Civil War, but that's okay because they're quite related. We've been talking about it for a little while. In fact, if I back up a little bit, we had the faction play roundtable.
Yes.
And there was a number of things essentially agreed upon in that roundtable. Some of them already been introduced, including changes on the tug of war system that has more of a weighted randomness now to make sure that the people who like, say, incursion or whatever get that more frequently. Some of those changes are already in. Some of those changes are about to come in over the next couple of months, and some of the bigger changes are going to come in before the end of the year. So essentially everything we talked about in that meeting is going to come in before the end of the year. The big one at the end of the year being more the selectable spawn points. That's in the plans to come out near the end of the year. So all that stuff is going to happen. So it's taking a little longer than usual, but just to remind everybody that those meetings are important to us, and we are implementing all those changes. And so one of those things that's kind of quasi-related to faction play, it kind of started out as faction play, but it kind of became more of the reason it's taken a little bit longer, it kind of evolved into more of a general feature for the game. But really it's the special event stuff, and you guys have heard us talk about that for a while. Last patch, I think maybe even in May, we patched in a lot of this functionality. You guys haven't seen us do it yet, but for the moment it's kind of outside of the client, but it allows us to set up these specific events. So we can set up in a specific planet with IS versus IS or clan versus clan event. Now the plan is, and so hopefully in July you'll see us actually run some events, some weekend events or whatever that are these type, which will be new and very interesting, I think. But the plan also is over the coming couple of months to finish off our work, which will kind of bring all that functionality into the client. And one of the evolutions was that it became not just a faction play thing, but kind of a general game thing. So in faction play, there actually will be windows and UI representation in the front end of, say, a particular thing happening. Let's say a particular event between Davian and Lao, and it's these two IS factions and so on and so forth, and it actually will list off the specific rewards that are being granted for that event. So if you come and play, kind of like how we list off all the rewards on the website, but it'll be listed right there on the game client in real time for that particular special event. And we're enhancing that feature to also just kind of exist in the general game. So it'll probably allow us to put a lot of the things at least some, maybe most of the things that we do on the website currently, or at least to shift a good portion of that into the client so that you can handle and manage all that stuff right within the game client rather than going to the website. So the features kind of evolved, but that to answer your question is a yes. Over the next few months, you're going to see more and more of that functionality coming into the game where we can do events like IS versus IS and stuff.
Excellent. I'm totally looking forward to that. Of course, IS versus IS is that's been going on for decades, centuries. Anyway, let's go into new comp mode. You guys ready for some comp mode questions?
Ready.
Let's do it. My only critique on the new comp mode is the banning of champion and hero mechs. I play those to farm C-bills faster, and I'm sure I am not alone. Any comments?
Well, I mean, the direction to ban those mechs was, specifically given to us by the players. I mean, when we had
Wait a second. Don't you not earn C-bills?
You don't. Yeah, I was going to kind of gloss over that because I wasn't sure that. I'm not sure why he said that. If we're misunderstanding his question a little bit, or if he didn't write it out the way he wanted, but you're right, you don't. And we can talk about that if we want. And this thing is quite obvious. You could create 2 teams and just fight each other and throw matches or whatever. So it's just like private matches. It makes sense why there isn't C-bills. But the banning of champions and hero mechs, or essentially MC mechs, was one of the first pieces of feedback we got in our competitive roundtable meeting that we had to do that. You got to do that for competitive reasons. So we did it, and that's why that's the way it is. So that's the way the players wanted it.
Yeah, I think that's an easy answer. The next one is, in the last town hall, you said you were looking at moving the OC server. Oh, this is being okay. To the OC region for rank mode. Any updates on that?
Yeah, I mean, we have been working on that. It's not an easy thing. So we've been doing research. We've been gathering our data, and so I need to chase that. I appreciate the reminder here. I need to finish chasing that. But I just want to make it clear to people what we're talking about, because the question is sort of like, moving the LC server into the LC region. Well, of course, the Oceanic server is in the Oceanic region. It's in Singapore. So the question we had to ask ourselves is, well, is there a better place in the Oceanic region? And are we essentially talking about an Australian server? And if that's so, another thing, back up a little bit. There's no way we can add a 4th region. Let's just forget about it from a matchmaking perspective and whatnot. So the only real question is, should the Oceanic server be somewhere else? And we were asking ourselves and running all the data and getting our stats and saying, well, possibly. If we look at the stats and we find that, okay, the majority of Oceanic players are in one particular region, and that region is not the Singapore region. So, for example, the most likely scenario might be that Eastern Australia, like Sydney area, whatever, that's like where the largest portion of the players are. And then if that's the case, and it looks like enough of the players, then maybe we just move the server there. So it's really about moving it somewhere. But however, for the comp mode, I mean, the Oceanic server is in the Oceanic region, so I'm not necessarily, I don't know if Darren, any of you guys can help me out here, but for competitive reasons, I mean, it's it's already over there in the Oceanic region. If they're an Oceanic team, then there shouldn't be a lot of disadvantage there.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know. As I did mention earlier, though, to let's see, who was it? Somebody in chat from comp, I forgot who it was. Sorry. We're hopefully having another comp scene town hall or roundtable soon, and we'll address more of these questions specifically. And I was also a little distracted there because I think we misunderstood the previous question, so I'm trying to sort it out here. Basically, what they were, and I'm sorry for glossing over the Oceanic question, but I want to make sure that we're not, representing this person's question incorrectly. When he was asking about the hero mechs in comp, he was mainly asking about the C, S, O, and I variants, since they have C-bill alternatives already in the game. So no MC only advantage like the hero mechs. And I don't know that you'll be able to answer that, but that is, or if you understood what I said there, Russ.
I remember one of the staff actually bringing this up. And can you give me a specific example? Can anyone here give a specific example? Is that the...
Chat, give us an example. Do your magic.
The Timberwolf Prime versus the Timberwolf Prime invasion would be one off the top of my head.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that is something that came up. I think, I don't, obviously, if they're the same mech, they're the same mech. There's no problem for us to turn those on. I guess just now we have to, figure out how to do that, because obviously what they were doing was filtering out all the MC mechs. So now we have to kind of, I don't know, we have to manhandle it or just kind of go in and set specific flags on certain mechs. Certainly not insurmountable work or anything. It's just, I guess, something we're going to have to talk about and jump on. So, I mean, it sounds like it's possible to do that. So I guess I'll just, just say it that way.
All right, so that point was made, and we do keep all our notes from these things. It will be discussed internally. Thank you for that question and bringing it up, and thank you, chat, for pointing out that we messed up the question. That was my fault, not anybody else's. And also in terms of the comp mode question, as far as the oceanic servers and that stuff, we'll get to it. Like I said, we're probably going to have a dedicated meeting in regards to those things, and we'll discuss directly with the comp scene and so forth. So we will get back to that, not skipping that or ignoring that question either. I'm going to move on to a faction warfare question, which is, we've had two, and you actually addressed this already, right? So we don't really need to talk about it?
Sorry, I just let me take a look here.
Basically,
yeah, I think
know
I
if there'll
did.
be more.
All the roundtable stuff is either going to be out soon, or going to be out before the end of the year.
Yeah, so we had two faction warfare roundtables. The first one, all that stuff made it into the game. Second one, all of it will be into the game by the end of the year, as Russ just mentioned a few minutes ago. So, and then we will have more faction warfare roundtables, as well as other, specific meetings in regards to various sections of the game. So we're going to move on to, this is a question about MWOWC, which is, please provide the details about the 2017 World Championship qualification phase. Will there be a schedule, a minimum match number to be done, main days for qualification games to ensure enough teams are on simultaneously, etc.?
Yes. But I'm going to try to talk about a few things here, because I had a few thoughts, and I just want to make sure we cover everything. I mean, first off, there was a smaller site launched for MechCon, MWO World Championships, but the official site is going to go up very soon. I'm going to just put the major pressure. It's definitely going to go up in the next couple of weeks, and that's going to have all the details on the World Championships again. And so I think the gist of the qualification is already out there. I mean, with the comp mode out there now, get your teams together and get playing, because at a certain date here, a couple months from now, it's going to be a cutoff, and we're going to take the top X amount of teams and put them into sort of a couple week long, round robin tournament. So we can get down to the final three. So the way we're going to get down to the final three is taking, like, say, and don't quote me on this number, could be more or less, but let's say roughly the top dozen or so are going to be invited to that qualification tournament to get down to the bottom three. So you need to get into that top 12 or so from the comp rank mode. So start playing. Don't be intimidated. Don't worry about this top teams that they're, winning and they're going to be there. Get your matches in. I mean, just keep playing. And before I forget again, there was one person on Twitter that had a really great idea. I'm sorry, whoever you're out there, great job with this idea. Because a lot of people were asking about, particular divisions within the comp mode. For reasons that I probably don't need to explain, because we've talked so many times on this, town hall about bucketing and like matchmakers and stuff. There's obviously not enough teams in there. You're not even close to having all sorts of different divisions and whatnot for matchmaking reasons. But it did seem like, I haven't, got this tech reviewed by anyone here yet and see if there's something I'm not seeing that's, would be difficult. But it sounds like someone said, hey, just split the leaderboard into like divisions. So like, essentially the matchmaker and everything works exactly the same, but maybe we have like 5 divisions, like all the way down to beer league or something. And so it would, kind of say who's the top, beer league team, or tier 5 team, or, division 5 team, division 4 team, and just kind of split up the leaderboard. I think that's a good idea. I think that would help just to get people playing in there more, because it's like, okay, you're not expecting to be a top 3 team. You're not expecting to be in the round robin, but you should still be in there with your team and competing. It's, it's a great way to have a lot of fun. I know that because I see how popular all these tournaments are out there with you guys, the MRBC and others. So, so there's a few tweaks we can do to that, and I think we definitely are going to have a follow-up comp roundtable to make sure that we're tweaking the feature as best we can. But in the meantime, I want to encourage everyone to say that the official site's going to launch. All those details will be released. Encourage you to play. And I'm also going to encourage everyone to get their dang MechCon tickets. They're selling pretty well, but we definitely want to have more than last year. It's going to be awesome. I mean, the new venue is going to be really great for a kind of much more of a con-like experience. The last venue was awesome, but I think this one's going to have different advantages. It's going to kind of create a con atmosphere where almost everybody's going to be staying right there at that hotel. The show is right downstairs. Lobby bars right there. All the big, Catalyst, Hairbrained, everyone's going to be there again. And we have some really big announcements for stuff that's going to be visible there, playable there. And I just want you to not miss out on that. So we'll announce those things officially later. But there's a tease. Get your tickets. I want to see a spike after this town hall. For all you guys, don't sit on the fence. Get there. So I'm going to keep moving along here with my thoughts. Darren, don't try to stop me, okay? Here's another one. Want to announce something tonight that's pretty important, I guess, when it comes to the cash prize of the tournament. It won't be exactly like last year. We are going to announce the tournament supporter pack sometime real soon. Last year that got to like 43,000 or something like that to the tournament prize pool, so that was really great. We're going to put that out again. Piranha is not going to be putting in the same like $100,000 seed that we did last year. A number of reasons for that, and we're going to have anywhere near time to go into this tonight. But the basic gist is that was an absolute nightmare when it came to international teams, Russian teams, and it was forget it. There's no way I could possibly explain it. I think also, it's just we tried that out last year, seeing if we could attract kind of players outside of our own community. It didn't really work that way. We had mostly our own community there, and they showed up in droves, and it was wonderful. So what are the players going to get as a cash prize? I mean, it's still going to be big. I mean, it's still, honestly, I think it's going to be equivalent. I think it's just going to be different. I mean, first off, you will have the whole tournament supporter pack cash that could be upwards of 50,000 again. I mean, we'll get higher this year. We'll see. There's still going to, all the teams that qualify are going to be flown there, and all the accommodations and flights, of course, be paid for to come to MechCon. There's a lot of value there. And then, Piranha will definitely be putting in something, and we're going to try and overcome that, nightmare that the cash prize was. We're gonna be working really closely with our sponsors and stuff, and I think there will probably be significant, if not equivalent, amounts of physical gear is my hope. So like lots of computer hardware, mice and keyboards, and I don't know, lots of video cards. I'm gonna explore that avenue significantly, but so it's gonna be a little different from a seating perspective, cash wise, but I hope that doesn't dampen anyone's spirits, because really it was just an amazing time, and I want everyone to be there. And the cash prize overall was still, I think, really significant, for a game of MechWarrior Online size. I mean, I think last year the overall cash prize was equivalent to some CS:GO games, and it'll be similar this time from a overall value perspective. So there's that. Just want to get all out there. I want you guys to come to MechCon. I can't tell you how fun it was interacting with you guys. I want to meet more of you guys. I got to meet a lot of you last time. I better not start dropping names or I'll never stop. I want to meet more of you this year. So come up to Vancouver. We'll see you at MechCon. Did I cover all the questions there on the MechCon thing? I think I did, right? Did you guys go to sleep? Cool. Well, let me just read the next question then. All right, I'm gonna be Darren. Okay, so why aren't maps a higher priority? By priority, I mean, why can't we see a map every quarter? Oh, okay, no, I'm doing great. Spawn points adjusted.
Don't take my job.
Go ahead.
What else do I have?
Why do we have you here, Darren? I don't know why.
I don't know what happened. I was freaking out so much about MechCon, I yanked out a cord or something. But anyway, I want to reiterate and second the fact that I hope as many of you as possible will be at MechCon. I'm super excited about it. I am a part of the planning meetings. I know it's coming. It's going to be amazing. I had such a great time meeting you guys last year. So did Phil and Chris. And hopefully we'll get to meet more of you guys this year. It is going to be better than last year. Bigger, better, gonna get to see Hairbrained again and Catalyst, and just have a lot of fun. And like I always say, it is a great time to be a BattleTech and MechWarrior fan, and you don't want to miss out on this stuff. It may not happen forever, and you don't want to be one of the people that doesn't get to meet all your fellow MechWarrior and BattleTech fans. So MWOmercs.com/MechCon. Hope to see you there. And we are going to move on. The general question, you were asking it great, Russ. You were doing my job very well. Kind of made me a little jealous. But the question is, it's in regards to maps. And there were a lot of questions in chat in regards to maps as well. Why are maps not a higher priority? By priority, I mean we see a new map quarterly. At least, why aren't spawn points and objective placement rotated to utilize areas of the map which are rarely seen in combat? Why aren't map boundaries altered to create more options with existing terrain?
Well, the quick answer is, and I think we may wrap back around to this later, but it's getting pretty late, so I guess we've got to move along here. There is a new map being worked on right now, a couple in fact. There's a pretty good chance you will see one fairly soon. I don't know, people interpret those things differently in a bit, I'll say it that way. It's under development. I know people that's really come to the forefront here. I mean, this is something that we struggle with a bit because when we're working on content, sometimes we see that, when we compare the number of maps we have to a lot of other games, it feels like we do have a fairly good amount of them, that it's not necessarily like a weak point. But every game's different in that, in our game, of course, it might have more value than in another game, like meaning just the variety it provides and the freshness that it provides. So really shouldn't compare ourselves to anyone else. So I understand everyone's kind of worked up about that now. I've got some thoughts on that we might circle back to, but I guess quickly I would say that we're definitely working on right now and definitely shifting. Right now there's a lot more priority on it. So that's the best I can do for you right now, but get excited. Maps coming.
Excellent. All these people after that saying they want to touch my beard at MechCon. I think I'm going to shave right before MechCon.
They can only touch it if they come.
Exactly.
Buy a ticket.
You have to be there.
Ask those guys. How many of those guys said that are coming? Let's go.
Very good point. I want to see your name on the list, guys. And then maybe you can touch the beard. Anyway, let's move on to the next one. Is there any chance to get some of the old maps? Now, this is a question that's been brought up several times, but I'll say it real quick. Is there any chance we can get some of the old maps back into circulation? I'm thinking like Old Forest Colony, Terra Therma, etc., and anything else that was fun from back in the day.
Okay. It's not impossible. We could do it, but whatever. I know it's hard to explain, but there's a technical reason with the game and the game engine and the game files and stuff that we ended up building the new versions of those maps on the same, I guess, base layer, file name, or whatever. So essentially, in order to get the old ones back, we could do that. But it's a little more work than maybe it sounds like. It's not just like dusting out the old file and putting it in. And I'd rather spend those resources on creating brand new maps. So for now, that's what we've decided to do rather than try to dust off those old ones, is create new ones. So that's why. So the answer is, will they ever come back? Never say never. But I think most people would agree, like, okay, make more brand new maps. And that's what we've decided to do.
That's my vote. I mean, I love the old maps. They had certain characteristics that were cool and maybe nostalgia reasons or whatever. But honestly, that's where my vote would go, new maps.
I could jump.
So here's a little something that I just thought of. I'm going to throw that out
Don't
there.
rip.
Who did I just run over top of?
Kidding.
It's
Phil.
just me. Don't worry about it.
Oh, just Phil.
Just Phil.
Go ahead, Phil. You say your piece first.
No, I was just going to say one of the things that you guys just did in this last patch was update HPG, where you introduced 2 new locations inside of the center of the map. I think little things like that go a long way to helping maps. I mean, so it's one of those where I think if people can make suggestions to current maps, so not necessarily, hey, bring this old map back, but revisiting certain locations, updates to like Crimson, Crimson, and, is that something that you guys would, we could maybe start a official thread on, say, hey, what are your suggestions that our map guys will look at?
We've done a little bit of that in the past with some, I think, mixed results. The first time as soon as you said that, I thought, sure. I mean, we could kind of like on a quarterly basis, like put one of our existing maps up and kind of tell the players like, okay, talk amongst yourselves, vote, like where would you tweak the positions of particular things. I think we did some of that with Alpine which kind of failed in a sense that we made some changes that people would come up with, and then people hated it, and we had to change it. I can't remember now, but bottom line is, whatever. That doesn't matter. I'm not going to let that taint things if it did. Maybe there was some miscommunication there, but yeah, we could do that. I mean, it's not going to hurt anyone's feelings over here. I mean, it'd be really helpful if there was really consensus on how we could tweak a particular map and make it just a little different, a little better in some ways. So it's a good suggestion. I think we should talk to Tina. I think you should all tweeting her right now. Just everyone send a tweet.
Actually,
here it goes.
Andy in chat just pointed out that there's already a section for specific map feedback. I just posted it in Twitter chat right there.
And that's what we used before with the Alpine one. I know. Yeah,
yep.
We've done some of that.
Maybe
if you guys think it should be focused a little differently, or maybe more focused, like instead of just leaving it general, kind of like focusing it on like this map, talk about it. Where would you do this? Where would you do that? And kind of maybe focus the conversation more.
All right. And then, Russ, you were going to say something when Phil interrupted you. Do you remember what that was?
Oh, Phil. Oh, jeez.
That's all right. Maybe it'll come back.
I don't know. What was I talking about?
I don't know. We were talking about the old maps.
New maps, yeah. Great new maps.
New maps versus old maps.
I don't know. Whatever.
All right.
Carry on. It's probably going to be amazing, but
it was probably in regards to this next question, which is, can we get an urban map with buildings that tower over the mechs, like fighting in the streets of New York City, for example?
I mean, that's a good question, isn't it? I mean, can we get one? I think in some ways we're gun shy. The original River City took forever and in a day. It was a nightmare. And we were cutting our teeth back then on the engine and the game, so probably shouldn't be so scared, and we should try. Frame rate, of course, is a concern. I think things would have to be limitations, meaning if it was like that, have to cut off a lot of sight lines and things like that. So it needs a lot of art support to do a game like that. If people were willing to accept, I guess we were worried that it would wouldn't look very good. Maybe it wouldn't look as good as our other maps because for like a 24-player, PvP game on CryEngine to try to get it look good enough and keep the frame rate up. So I think we're just scared. I'll admit it right now. I'm scared. I want it too.
People making the comparison to MechWarrior 4, but keep in mind, guys, number one, that was a single-player game, and even that urban map, I know which one you're talking about. It's not New York City.
No, I mean, if we want to, I know nostalgia is a powerful thing, but I mean, it's not even River City. I mean, I know what they mean from a density perspective, right? Mm-hmm. That's what they're really looking for. So, yeah, I mean, I feel you. I mean, maybe if we look at the buildings that some of the tallest buildings in River City, or whatchamacallit, Crimson, what's it called? The other one, the other
Crimson
city
Strait.
one. Is that yeah. Yep. So I mean, maybe you take the tallest buildings from those maps and just make a giant urban center and just make people crawl around in buildings, even of that.
I think
that graphical quality, just kind of maybe that graphical quality of those buildings, but maybe just stretch them up a little higher, and in some cases, that could work. I mean, great, you guys just designed a map. Good job.
All right, done and done. Next question is, would you please post models of mechs for sale during the early adopter period? They help me decide if I want to buy. I appreciated the work in progress models that were shown for the Civil War mechs a few weeks ago. Thanks. You know what I'm thinking they're talking about is maybe Lauren's streams or something like that as far as work in progress. Anyway, there you go. Take it away.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and sometimes they do some teaser stuff maybe, but I mean, a lot of times those mechs are in full production when those pre-orders go on. So they probably, within the early adopters were within the first 30 months, there's work done, but sometimes it might not just be enough work done to kind of tease stuff. But the person there to pester, again, I guess you can hit him up in the forums or hit him on Twitter, is Matt Newman or Matt Neutron or whatever he calls himself.
It was Matt's stream that they're referring to.
So hit him up and just say you want to see way more of that. And
bug Matt.
Yeah, he'll do that.
Yeah, it's at Matt Neutron on Twitter, at Matt Neutron. Bug him right now.
The guy, he's just a nice guy. Just
he is.
hit him up.
He'll make it happen. If it's possible, he'll make it happen. All right. Next question is: are we going to finally get a new social lobby system like the old MSN Gaming Zone was, on a tab in the main UI? MWO has for 4+ years been very barren of social aspects for the new and old players to chat in a live environment to get needed information about MWO related issues and actual live help and instruction on gameplay. Sorry if I didn't read that well. Again, not my writing, so I had to figure out as I was going. But anyway, something like MSN Gaming Zone. We were talking about this earlier, Russ. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of times when people think about this, I think anyhow, from what I remember of MSN Gaming Zone and stuff, is they're kind of thinking a little bit old school in the sense of like GameSpy and stuff, where there was the game worked in a fundamentally different way from sort of like looking for a server browser and your friends and you launch into a match. Well, MDO just doesn't work that way. It really can't work that way. It doesn't mean that there's not social aspects within that lobby system that we can use, but I think the key lies more in just, incremental improvements with our system. And unfortunately, we're just so deep in now at this point. Like when you're 5 years into a game, 6 years in really since it started with development. 6 years in, think about that. I mean,
Yep.
Here's a little like pat on the back moment. I mean, how many people thought in the gaming industry in general that MechWarrior Online would be going strong, 6 years from the time we started development? I mean, there's a handful of games, North American games, there's probably a lot in Asia and stuff, but games developed and created in North America for the North American market as free-to-play products that are around 6 years later. It's a handful of them. So, but at this point, we are pretty. I mean, we're 6 years in. So, totally gutting out the social lobby system and trying to do something else is really difficult. You're seeing improvements. You saw the floating chat system. I think it helps a lot to have that thing floating there right in Mech Lab and stuff. It's great. We just need more, and we need to take the looking for group screen and improve it, and we need to add other aspects, whether it's like you say, like a what do you call it, like a unit recruitment area. Like there's we need to find ways to add and improve our system. Unfortunately, the answer lies right there now, and I just encourage everyone to kind of think that way, because the thinking sort of like changing things epically and drastically on that side is just probably not feasible. So we should probably all focus our energy and efforts on saying, okay, fine, here's how the system works right now. Let's add this. And when I look at your screens, and when I look at your social tab, and when I look at you're looking for group feature and your floating chat screen, here's what I do to add a unit recruitment tool, or try to think about ways to add into that particular system. And those are suggestions that we can take and we can use and we can make happen. Versus a suggestion that basically says, maybe just, gut it or something. It's unlikely at this point. So, yeah, I mean, I appreciate the thought. I agree. It's those kind of changes are just too infrequent now. I mean, the floating chat was like, again, it's just floating on every screen. It's like unbelievable. And when I played, it's just like, I love having this like right here floating in MechLab. So I don't have to like click the social screen. So shit like that is just so big. We just need more of those things.
So I got to follow up to you, Russ, and this doesn't have to do with MSN Gaming Zone, but you brought up floating chat. That's great. One thing I've been sort of pestering you about is the group menu. You continually have to go down to the social tab, click it, click ready. It's not persistent. Can we make that persistent? Sort of like the chat window. So every single time you're ready and you want to ready up, all you have to do is click ready instead of having to click the social tab, wait, a few seconds, then it pops up, then ready. Oh, well, let me change my mech because, someone, we got 10 tons ready. Let me exit out of that. We could just have that persistence. I know I've been bugging you. I know it's my thing, but I don't think I'm the only one out there.
I mean, that sounds wonderful. Let's do it.
Done. That's your task, Phil. So get to programming.
I'll get right on that.
And also, guys, in regards to some kind of social feature where older players and newer players can chat, and there can be some community support. not official, I'm saying community, supporting community, also as a recruitment tool and so forth. There's something I've been working on. It's going through the, proper channels and so forth. So potentially that could come out in the future. I understand what you're looking for as far as that goes, and so maybe we have something that'll work. But the next question is, and he's in chat. The guy who asked this question, he's out there. He asked it to you on Twitter, Russ. So here it is again. What is PGI's focus and direction for MWO? Esports, a game to play with friends, solo queue, faction warfare?
Yes, I think this is from my dear friend, Imperious.
Indeed. Imperious, are you out there? You gonna hear it answered live? So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I just I know he did hit me up on Twitter with this. I don't. I mean, I have a hard time with this question a little bit, just because I guess it kind of insinuates that we're working on too many directions, and that maybe it should be more focused, and it should be more focused in a particular direction. Like, let's say, I mean, for him, what I know about him, he was always much a proponent for the group queue and playing with his friends in the group queue. But that aspect exists in MWO. It's there. It's the group queue. And there's other areas to play with your groups, whether it's in comp mode now, or whether it's forming a group and playing in a unit and playing with your friends in a faction play. So I think the way I would answer that question is, MechWarrior Online is a PvP MechWarrior experience. It was designed to be the first of its kind, really. Of its, like, when it comes to the BattleTech and MechWarrior universe, to allow players to play MechWarrior in a PvP environment, and to play that in as many interesting ways as possible. That we have solo queue and group queue. There's the private match screen, faction play, which includes 4v4 scouting mode, and did I mention the comp mode? I think I did. And so we're trying to give people as many ways as possible to experience MechWarrior versus MechWarrior combat in a PvP environment. So I feel very focused. I'm not sure what people would have us do. If perhaps, I know this is an area that's full of opinions, that perhaps maybe one of those features or another were unnecessary or unwarranted, or they don't like it. Like, perhaps they don't like faction play at all. They feel we should have done something else, or we should have focused way more on faction play and not done the comp mode. Or there's opinions there, but I mean, I guess if you look at it from a MechWarrior PvP game, we're very focused.
There you go. MechWarriors with opinions. I have no idea what you're talking about. Next question is, I think we'll do this one. Can we get reduced gravity on HPG? Simple, straightforward.
I don't think we're going to be playing around with gravity. I'd have to get way too technical with crytek and physics and hit detection, and it would be a gong show. Just an absolute circus.
All right, so that's a no for now anyway. I would love to see mech physics in the game allow for falling over and getting knocked over and getting back up animations, like when light mech gets hit with an AC-20 in the legs, it should trip and fall. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, earlier this year, I think it was this year, maybe it was late last year, we were able to come up with some significant improvements in the, the mech movement, animation, and hit detection area, like the collision area when mechs collide with each other and all that kind of warping, poppy kind of stuff. It's like essentially gone at this point. There's huge improvements there, which is wonderful. I think that does help. I think at this point, something like, say, knockdowns, if we were to look at it, is fairly possible. I just don't. I mean, it just has to find its way to the priority of saying, well, that's just, that's the best thing right now that we should be doing. It's just way better than any other feature we could be working on. But I think when we made those improvements last year in those areas, it made it more feasible again. Because before, it was more, there was this problems like do you really want knockdowns if you're kind of like rubber banding through players and stuff is strange. Now that those issues have been cleaned up a lot, I think it does open the door more for it. So I guess that's the best I can do for you right now.
So the answer is yes. It's just a matter of priority, or at least mostly yes. It's a matter of prioritizing. Sounds good. Now, Russ, we're at 8 o'clock now. Would you like to do a quick bio and then come back and take care of the rest of business, or what's good for you?
Yeah, so let's do a tiny bio, and when I come back, I do want to talk to you guys about some stuff. You're definitely going to find it very interesting. But honestly, it's about me asking you guys questions now and kind of planting some seeds and seeing what you think and what you like, and it's going to really determine, I think, at least I'm hoping, what it's going to do is it's going to help me determine our development efforts moving forward on what is the most interesting to you, the players.
All right, guys. So you heard it. We got some more stuff to announce after this, and then potentially we'll do some live questions. So don't go anywhere. All right, everybody, we are back. Welcome back to the Town Hall meeting with Russ Bullock and Chris Lowrey. I am Darren, a.k.a. Bombadil, and we're going to just jump right back into this because it is getting late, and I know you guys want to ask some questions in chat. But before we get to the questions in chat, I want to make sure you guys stick around. Don't run away because of these questions or anything, because Russ does want to announce something at the very end. But we are going to take some questions from you. Here's how you do it. Preface your question with, in all caps, question, so that we can easily pick it out of the chat there. So all caps, question, put your question out there. We're going to scan and we're going to quickly answer as many of these as possible. We've already been doing this for over 2 hours, so please, I hope you have our understanding or your understanding with this. Let's make this happen. Questions from you guys right now. Stick around. Russ has something to discuss afterwards. Let's do it. Here we go. And Phil, you might want to put it on slow.
Oh, it's on slow. Just how slow do we want to go?
All right. Question: when will we see the piranha? Being piranha goons.
Well, I'll touch on that when I give him a little shit later, because that's it's kind of related, sort of.
Cool.
Sort of.
Lots of questions about Solaris, blah blah blah. For new players, are there any plans to make the game more accessible? I can answer that one. We're working on an official wiki, which is going to have tons of tutorial videos and other ways to make the game more new player friendly. That's not the only thing that we're working on, but yes, that's something that's always on our minds, making this more new player accessible, less of a learning curve. Are you guys seeing any questions?
Yeah, I have one regarding the clan laser ranges.
Take it, Chris.
So the question is, can we get clans small and medium class laser ranges restored to double effective range? For right now, we're just going to test everything with the new tech as it is, but that is definitely something that we're going to examine closely as we look at it into the new tech, now that the Intersphere is probably going to have more parity with the ER tech. Pulse lasers probably going to be a much bigger ask because of how boosted the clan versions of those weapons are compared to the IS.
All right, here's a question. Will you guys take a look at the dual cool shot or the dual cool shot, dual strike builds out there? They seem to be a little too strong and annoying.
So, dual cool shot, yes, I have that under my radar for right now. Can't speak as to any kind of changes or when they would come in right now. But dual strikes is something that it's also under my radar, but it's also a bit tougher to change because we're kind of close to the bone as far as getting usefulness out of those nodes right now. So anything that we really would do to those kind of consumables would almost certainly need more nodes. And as Russ kind of basically said earlier, we're trying to kind of avoid that for right now, so we'll probably see some value adjustments and kind of collect feedback on a lot of the skill tree nodes, and if we do have to add, nodes to the cost or whatnot, it would probably be done at a later time.
I'll take a quick one here, and I've seen a bit of this in chat. Is MechWarrior 5 still coming? The radio silence has been very worrying. The radio silence has been on purpose. The MechWarrior 5 is definitely coming out, and it's going to be amazing. But this is not MechWarrior Online. And what I mean by that is it's a much more of a traditional product, right? It's a single-player game, although it's going to have other aspects that we will announce at a later time. And it's being handled in a much more traditional sense. Even MechWarrior Online was handled that way up until open beta. I mean, we kept things pretty much under wraps until about GDC, and then we had all the big interviews, and then went from there with the PC Gamer cover, and then by the time it went to open beta, it kind of went to much more of a us and our community type of mentality. MechWarrior 5 is following the same thing. So we have a PR firm. We're talking to the major media outlets. We have things planned between here and MechCon. You'll see some major bits come out here later, starting in the fall, heading to MechCon, and you'll definitely see some stuff at MechCon. And so go to MechCon and keep your eyes peeled. It'll definitely start ramping up starting this fall, no doubt.
MWOWC.com/MechCon. Phil, you finding any questions out there? I know there's a lot. It's hard to read with all these.
They're all for Chris, so you know.
I know.
Of course.
Chris, you got any more?
Yeah, the UAC had jam chance nodes being useless. We might have something planned for that. It's still in testing right now, so I can't really comment on any kind of solutions at this moment, but it is getting looked into.
Question regarding the social tab. Can we have it so that it updates when people leave game? People are giving invites to people that aren't in the game anymore. Is that something we're aware of?
Sorry, I don't know. I can't answer that. If
All
that's
right,
on the radar of people or whatnot.
Yep, that's a different department. We'll get somebody on that.
Jump jet buffs for Class 1 jets. I'd like to, but there's animation concerns and also hit reg concerns. So whenever you mess with any kind of movement system, so it's something that I've looked into, but it's also something that goes beyond what I can kind of do myself. So it might. I've got my eye on it, but as far as when those things will come, it is dependent on other things outside my control.
All right, MechPack asks, can we have the event update properly at the top of the hour, not like 10 minutes after and possibly every 30 minutes? Some of these questions, keep in mind, guys, we may not have the answers for because we don't have the proper person here for that. Russ, do you know anything about that?
I don't.
Right.
I'm not sure how often the website updates with the events, so it can probably be tweaked if there's a better way to do it that everyone agrees on. I don't know. Sorry, we talked to Matt, pester him on that one, and we can take a note there and we'll ask him.
At Matt Neutron on Twitter.
Yeah, take a note so we can ask him.
Yep.
Someone asked, shoot. God, oh my goodness, I can't believe the questions here.
Well, here's one for you, Russ. You love the dragon. That's well known. Any word on the Grand Dragon?
No word. No word
right.
on the Grand Dragon.
There you go. There's the answer. Chris, why is the Timberwolf nerfed mobility-wise?
So the engine desync change was mostly there to bring all the mechs pretty much within the relative mobility states to their current tonnage bracket. So where other mechs like the Orion and Black Knight essentially saw mobility increases through this change, the Timberwolf saw a little bit of a decrease to bring it into line with all the 75-tonners available. Regarding the second part of his question regarding the negative mobility attributes, so obviously those are things that we can look at if we feel like the Timberwolf needs a boost. But the thing to remember about the Timberwolf is that it is a very high-performing 75-tonner, and while it does have those negative attributes, removing them would basically, provide it a boost that we're not convinced it actually needs right now. I mean, if it gets to the point where it's, underperforming Cataphracts, Awesomes, and other stuff kind of within its general vicinity, then yeah, we can look at removing those things. But as long as it remains pretty much one of the top contenders for that spot, we're probably not going to look at things to boost it even further.
Question, better rewards for capping objectives, conquest specifically, match score, and C-bills?
That's something that I'm always in favor of. I just think...
just needs more tweaking?
Yeah, I just think we need to find a way to put that on like someone's plate, like Chris here, or someone's going to have to... I think the rewards overall are fine, but I think I'd be in favor of shifting some more, like shifting some of the money you're getting for like regular brawling stuff over to, the objectives. I think that'd be worthwhile.
Question, how will ATMs work? Still no real information.
And unfortunately, I cannot talk about stuff that is still currently in development. I will be glad to talk about it once the PTS comes out. Unless Russ allows me to pretty much dive into it.
Oh, that would open up like another hour of conversation probably,
yes,
so we'll have to chill on that. I guess we'll just reiterate that public PTS is coming real soon.
And I just dropped the download right there for the portal, so you can be ready for PTS when it does come out. So go ahead and grab that. And then Russ, Beef wants to know about Solaris 1v1 queue.
Well, are you done taking questions or no?
Yeah, we got to wrap this up, guys. It has been a long night, and it is a Friday, and we all need to get to our weekends. So, Russ, you had something to talk about.
Okay. So this is when everyone said, Russ is going to announce the latest mech pack. Well, no, I'm not going to. I never had any plans to do that. In fact, it's my job to try to come up with stuff that's exciting for you guys. I mean, it's good for us, it's good for you. I mean, you're interested, you get excited. We need things to be exciting here so that we can continue to run this game and make this game. And, you know, it's been such a pleasure and a joy to make this game with this property that I've loved all my life. So, yeah, I'd like to keep it going. I mean, like I mentioned earlier, we're a very mature game now. We've been around for a long time, and that's great. I think there's a lot for us to be proud of there, and there's still lots of work to do. But we've been making mech packs and things for a good long while. And mechs are awesome, and there's still plenty that people want. And I get tweets all the time about someone's mech that is still not in the game. So even though I still feel like there's plenty of opportunities for, you know, for mechs and mech packs, and I don't know that anything can ever stop that train in some way, but I also need to think about what will actually generate, you know, the real level of excitement like we had, you know, several years back when we announced the mech pack. And what would that be? There's been some good ideas. You know, people have talked about map packs. Map packs are very interesting to me, but I've never figured out a way that we could do it. Because there's just, I haven't figured out a way yet where you could actually exclude maps, you know, from anyone, or that, you know, the way the matchmaker works. And so I'm still kind of, you know, beating my head over that one and trying to figure out if there's a way to do something there, kind of some sort of pre-order map pack thing. And, you know, it's important, of course, that, you know, we're always working on something that you guys want so that, you know, that it generates, you know, revenue and it keeps the game in development. That's my job, to try to figure out what you guys want. And I think the Civil War mech packs have been interesting because they've been really cool mechs. And it was recently when we were kind of deciding on what the mech pack would be beyond Escalation. And that's why I said the Piranha, because I think Piranha was actually chosen. There's a little sneak peek, which I probably shouldn't have said. It was chosen. It was going to be in that mech pack. And I guess right now that mech pack, the one beyond Escalation, is kind of on hold at the moment because I'm trying to reassess everything, trying to figure out something that's maybe more exciting for players. And that's where Solaris comes in. Solaris is probably, and this kind of goes to that other question too, like what's your focus? Well, it's a PvP game, and what other aspects of PvP are kind of missing? And Solaris always comes up because it's kind of the one aspect that is missing. All the other features from faction playing stuff, you might not think they're perfect, or you know, you want certain changes, but there's so much there now, from comp play to faction play to group queue and solo queue and scouting queue. But we saw it last year's MechCon. I mean, with that arena Coliseum. I mean, that was so fun. That was so amazing. It really opened my eyes to like how incredible Solaris experience could be. And I think everyone out there agrees with me that Solaris is a rich idea. I mean, that could really be a game in and of itself. It wouldn't even have to be just like a feature. And in fact, we've been working on a Solaris design for months and months now. And we had a finished design probably several months ago. But I was just sitting here contemplating this question. I thought to myself, you know, this is really cool. It's really cool, but it's, in a way, it's just another mode. It's just sort of, you know, Solaris mode, you know, 1v1 mode. And great, there's new leaderboards associated, great new maps. It'd be really cool. In and of itself, that would probably be one of the more popular features in MWO if we were to put that out. But I really felt like I wanted to go further with that, because it's a rich concept that could almost be its own game. But in order to go further with it, I kind of needed the players to kind of say, like, yeah, this is what we want. This is what we want, instead of, you know, like a mech pack. We would support this. And if I did it, I wouldn't want to do it in the same way that we've done, say, faction play or some of the other features. And what I mean by that is to do it maybe like put out in 3 or 4 months from now, put out like an initial version, and then continue to improve upon it like every 3 or 4 months, like, you know, updating it. I mean, being a live game, it's kind of inevitable that there's updates, but I would want the initial version of Solaris to feel very complete, to be much more robust than just like an initial light version. And so that means it would be a much more feature-heavy product from the get-go, almost feel very complete from the moment it launched, which would increase its development time. This is not something that would probably be in 2017. You'd probably be looking at the first half of 2018 to do a really, really great, legit. And we've been working on this feature and making it a lot more robust, working in the lore and the canon and the, you know, like the host and patrons and all these things. And I want it to feel like, at least the way I feel like, and I think you guys would agree with me, like to work all that in, you wouldn't want it to just feel like another aspect of MWO, or like, you know, pick any one of your mechs in your mech band, just kind of launch over there into a queue, like blah, like just another, like a 1v1 queue. You'd want it to almost feel like a DLC, or to feel like when I go to the Solaris game within MWO, it's a totally different experience. So like, you know, no matter what's going on over here in solo queue and group queue and stuff, you go over there and you participate in the current season, just like you're, you know, lots of people do. You know, like whether you're talking about NASCAR racing or whatever, like if there's a particular season going on, and you go over there and you participate and work your way up through the hosts and the patrons and like really create a personality for yourself. Like, you know, you think about, you know, like Yen Lo Wang or whatever from the novels, and I would want to try to capture that. So I guess I'm here tonight kind of just dumping this on you, and we're fine-tuning this design right now, but I'm wondering if that's something that I know everyone's interested in the concept. There'd certainly be buy-in, but would there be, I guess, buy-in to kind of break the status quo from maybe like initial version and then iterate upon it like faction play, but to really kind of, I would need your guys' support. We'd probably look at, instead of doing just like a mech pack type of pre-order, we'd do some sort of like Solaris type of pre-order type thing. And that would allow us to skip the kind of lighter version update routine like we did with faction play, but to really design the robust feature set and just go straight there. Even though it would take a little bit longer, but it would be well worth it. It'd really almost be like a game in and of itself within MWO. So obviously, there's no way for you to respond to me here tonight. You might be hammering chat. I'm not looking at chat at the moment because I get distracted. I'm just kind of talking. So I think I'm just going to leave that there. Leave that for you guys to chew upon and somehow try to take temperature about. I brought up map packs. Maybe you got some ideas there. But really, Solaris is the big idea. I want to make that, but I really want to make it. It'll exist within MWO, but it'll really be almost like its own independent experience within MWO, and primarily as a 1v1 gladiatorial combat arena system where you know, just have so much more personality. We've also toyed very strongly with the idea of having a mech geometry edition system as part of Solaris, so you can add the actual geometry pieces like the horns or the, like, you know, the flash and flare maybe that you'd expect in a Solaris type of environment. So that would be kind of like how you add decals or whatever, but you'd be adding geometry, maybe a different shield on your, you know, Centurion, you know, different things like that. So that's a part of this kind of larger feature thought we're having. But I guess the last thing I'd say is to try to, you know, just boost confidence is that when it's come to pre-orders, we've always delivered 100%. I mean, every pre-order we've ever done, since this game launched, that pre-order is launched exactly when it's supposed to, and usually at very high level of quality. All the mechs and the art and the content has been there. So I'm wondering if you guys would be interested in something other than a mech pack, you know, something like this to support a feature like that. So I'll let that simmer there. Does that sound neat, Darren? Phil? I mean,
I love it. MechWarrior is Solaris. Solaris is MechWarrior. And that's, like I mentioned earlier, that's the novel I'm reading right now. Is all about Solaris and during the Civil War era. So I'm absolutely excited about it. I know that obviously Beef and a lot of other people out there are excited. And I would love to see continued discussion on how to make this happen, because I'm not going to rest until Solaris is in this game. So I'm very excited. Phil, how about you? Are you going to be a contender?
I was just going to say, there's a lot of questions in my mind going around. I know in chat, obviously you weren't looking, Russ. I mean, I think the premise is good idea. We just need more details to sort of get behind your idea, if anything. Is it 1v1? Is it free-for-all? I mean, the sky's the limit. I think people just need more information than just, hey, here's this idea. What do you guys think? I think they just need a little bit more to bite into before they would say yes or no.
Which will come. I think we just need to discuss it more. And of course, we do have the Steiner Coliseum out there. There's a lot of 1v1 events, like, for example, Clan Wolf in Exile. They do the CWX monthly 1v1. Paul and I, every Tuesday night, we do the Masters Challenge. We've got our own version of Kai Allard Liao in chat here, Bear Claw, who went undefeated for 3 months. And I think it's super fun. It adds a total different dynamic than anything that we have, you know, out there already. And I would love to see how we can implement it and bring this to life for sure. So let's make it happen, Mech Warriors. Let's get a Solaris in this game.
Well, I mean, obviously, I can't really talk about the details here, Phil, because, I mean, the questions would be flooded for the next hour. You know.
I would say until something official comes, we should just, you know, talk about it on Twitter.
Yeah, I mean, this is, I don't know. I mean, I guess, okay. I mean, thanks for the question. I guess if I was to do something like this, it would probably have to be somewhat quickly. What I mean by that is sort of like maybe by August sometime, because I guess I would need to know which direction we're headed, if we're going to kind of stick with more of the general process as it's been, or something different. So obviously, if we were to do something like this, like, for example, if there was sort of a pre-order page for supporting a Solaris feature, then that pre-order page would have to have a lot of details. I mean, it would have to have similar amount of details to a mech order page, or heavier in this case, because it'd have to be more feature details of what the feature is and what you're getting for supporting it. So that would happen before anyone would ever obviously buy into anything. So, but that's as far as stuff that happens between here and that moment, I don't know yet. I mean, honestly, we just need to first get a sense of just how interested people would be in supporting a Solaris pre-order. And they may have lots of questions about, well, exactly what would be in that pre-order. Well, I mean, yeah, that's fine. You could just say, yes, I'm totally interested, as long as the details of the feature were interesting to me. That's one answer. Another answer is, no, I'd never be interested in you know, pre-ordering a Solaris feature. I have everything I want in MWO right now, or I'm done playing and I'm not interested in Solaris. I mean, there's 100 million answers. It's either yes or no, and I understand that the yes is dependent on if the feature sounds interesting to them or not. So, and that would have to be determined by when the actual feature details are released, of course.
So let's flesh it out amongst ourselves and together. Let's make this happen. I know I totally want to see Solaris in this game, and I think there's a lot of really good ideas amongst the community, as well as within PGI, to make it happen and make it be, like Russ was saying, really unique and still part of MWO, but also separate from MWO. Lots of possibilities there. So I want to say, again, thank you to everybody for being here on your Friday night. We had a good turnout, and we appreciate you all being here. Sorry that we didn't get to all of the questions, and that goes to, you know, specifically to some of you. It's not intentional, it's not personal, it's just that we have limited amount of time. It is a weekend. These guys have been doing long hours all through the week, and we need to get some rest, get some food, etc. But thank you for being here. Thank you, Russ. Thank you, Chris, for taking your time and answering all these questions. Thank you again to our moderators. That was JD Splice, Wingbreaker, and Zoof. Appreciate your help. And again, thank you to everybody out there in the community. You guys are awesome. I love our community. We have such a passionate community, and it no doubt makes these things fun and interesting. And you know, we love our salt. We love our passion. So anyway, Russ, anything else to say? Are we good?
No, thanks for everyone coming out. Appreciate it.
All right, guys. Until next time, we will have more town halls. We will have more roundtables. Specifically, we'll be having a comp roundtable coming up soon. So be sure to look out for those. We'll announce them, of course, beforehand. Priority questions, again, go to the forum. So when you see one of these things announced, head to the forum thread, ask your questions. We'll get them in there. Don't forget about downloading the PTS, the portal. I'll link that again real quick here. There it is. And then also don't forget to check out MWOWC.com/MechCon. I hope to see as many of you as there as possible. Maybe you can touch the beard. Maybe you can shake hands with Phil and everybody else within PGI. It's going to be an awesome time this year. I guarantee it, guys. So MWOWC.com/MechCon. Get your tickets, and we'll see you next time. Good night, guys. Happy weekend.